1924, Hitler's refusal to allow a retreat led to the deaths of 200,000 German and Romanian soldiers. Of the 91,000 men who surrendered in the city on the 31st of January 1943, only 6,000 survivors returned to Germany after fewer. 125, turning point and collapse. Losses continued to mount after Stalingrad, leading to a sharp reduction in the popularity of the Nazi Party and deteriorating morale. 126. Soviet forces continued to push westward after the failed German offensive at the Battle of Kursk in the summer of 1943. By the end of 1943, the Germans had lost most of their eastern territorial gains. 127. In Egypt, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's Afrika Korps were defeated by British forces under Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery in October 1942. 128. The Allies landed in Sicily in July 1943 and in Italy in September. 129. Meanwhile, American and British bomber fleets based in Britain began operations against Germany. Many sorties were intentionally given civilian targets in an effort to destroy German morale. 130. The bombing of aircraft factories as well as Peenemünde Army Research Center where V-1 and V-2 rockets were being developed and produced, were also deemed particularly important. 131. 132. German aircraft production could not keep pace with losses, and without air cover the Allied bombing campaign became even more devastating. By targeting oil refineries and factories, they crippled the German war effort by late 1944. 133. On the 6th of June, 1944, American, British, and Canadian forces established a front in France with the D-Day landings in Normandy. 134. On the 20th of July, 1944, Hitler survived an assassination attempt. 135. He ordered brutal reprisals, resulting in 7,000 arrests and the execution of more than 4,900 people. 136. The failed Ardennes offensive. The 16th of December, 1944, the 25th of January, 1945, was the last major German offensive on the Western Front, and Soviet forces entered Germany on 27 January. 137. Hitler's refusal to admit defeat and Ei's insistence that the war be fought to the last man led to unnecessary death and destruction in the war's closing months. 138. Through his Justice Minister Otto Jagd, Hitler ordered that anyone who is not prepared to fight should be court-martialed, and thousands of people were executed. 139. In main areas, people surrendered to the approaching Allies in spite of exhortations of local leaders to continue to fight. Hitler ordered the destruction of transport, bridges, industries, and other infrastructure, a scorched earth decree, but Armaments Minister Albert Speer prevented this order from being fully carried out. 138. U.S. Army Air Force film of the aftermath of the destruction in central Berlin in July 1945 during the Battle of Berlin. The 16th of April, the 2nd of May 1945. Hitler and his staff lived in the underground fire bunker while the Red Army approached. 140. On the 30th of April, when Soviet troops were within 2 blocks of the Reich Chancellery, Hitler and his wife Eva Braun committed suicide. 141. On the 2nd of May, General Helmuth Weidling unconditionally surrendered Berlin to Soviet General Vasily Chuikov. 142. Hitler was succeeded by Grand Admiral Karl Dornitz as Reich President and Goebbels as Reich Chancellor. 143. Goebbels and his wife Magda committed suicide the next day after murdering their 6 children. 144. Between the 4th and the 8th of May 1945, Most of the remaining German armed forces unconditionally surrendered. The German instrument of surrender was signed the 8th of May, marking the end of the Nazi regime and the end of World War II in Europe. 145. Popular support for Hitler almost completely disappeared as the war drew to a close. 146. Suicide rates in Germany increased, particularly in areas where the Red Army was advancing. Among soldiers and party personnel, suicide was often deemed an honorable and heroic alternative to surrender. First-hand accounts armed propaganda about the uncivilized behavior of the advancing Soviet troops caused panic among civilians on the Eastern Front, especially women, who feared being raped. 147. More than 1,000 people, out of a population of around 16,000, committed suicide in Demmin around the 1st of May 1945 as the 65th Army of 2nd Belarusian Front first broke into a distillery and then rampaged through the town, committing mass rapes, arbitrarily executing civilians, and setting fire to buildings. High numbers of suicides took place in many other locations, including New Brandenburg, 600 dead, Stolpen-Pommern, 1,000 dead, 148, and Berlin, where at least 7,057 people committed suicide in 1945. 149. German casualties. German refugees in Bedburg, near Cleve. The 19th of February 1945 estimates of the total German war dead range from 5.5 to 6.9 million persons. 150. A study by German historian Rudolf Revermans puts the number of German military dead and missing at 5.3 million, including 900,000 men conscripted from outside of Germany's 1937 borders. 151. Richard Overy estimated in 2014 that about 353,000 civilians were killed in Allied air raids. 152. Other civilian deaths include 300,000 Germans, including Jews, Hauria, victims of Nazi political, racial, and religious persecution, 153, and 200,000 who were murdered in the Nazi euthanasia program. 154. Political courts called Sondergericht sentenced some 12,000 members of the German resistance to death, and civil courts sentenced an additional 40,000 Germans. 155. Mass rapes of German women also took place. 156. Geography. Territorial changes. Territorial expansion of German Reich from 1933 to 1941 as explained to Wehrmacht soldiers, an Asia map in German as a result of their defeat in World War I and their resulting Treaty of Versailles. Germany lost Alsace-Lorraine, northern Schleswig, and Memel. The Saarland became a protectorate of France under the condition that its residents would later decide by a referendum which country to join, and Poland became a separate nation and was given access to the sea with creation of the Polish Corridor, which separated Prussia from the rest of Germany, while Danzig was made a free city. 157. Germany regained control of the Saarland through a referendum held in 1935 and annexed Austria in the Anschluss of 1938. 158. The Munich Agreement of 1938 gave Germany control of the Sudetenland, and they seized the remainder of Czechoslovakia 6 months later. 69. Under threat of invasion by sea, Lithuania surrendered the Memel district in March 1939. 159. Between 1939 and 1941, German forces invaded Poland, Denmark, Norway, France, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Belgium, Yugoslavia, Greece, and the Soviet Union. 98. Germany annexed parts of northern Yugoslavia in April 1941, 111, 112, while Mussolini ceded Trieste, South Tyrol, and Istria to Germany in 1943. 160 occupied territories. Public execution of 54 Poles in Roski, Masovian Voivodeship, near Aden, German-occupied Poland 1942. Some of the conquered territories were incorporated into Germany as part of Hitler's long-term goal of creating a Greater Germanic Reich. Several areas, such as Alsace-Lorraine, were placed under authority of an adjacent Gau region or district. The Reichskommissariat, Reich Commissariats, quasi-colonial regimes, were established in some occupied countries. Areas placed under German administration included the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, Reichskommissariat Ostland, encompassing the Baltic states and Belarus, and Reichskommissariat Ukraine. Conquered areas of Belgium and France were placed under control of the military administration in Belgium and northern France. 161. Belgian-Malmedy, which had been part of Germany until 1919, was annexed. Part of Poland was incorporated into the Reich, and the general government was established in occupied central Poland. 162. The governments of Denmark, Norway, Reichskommissariat Norwegian, and the Netherlands, Reichskommissariat Nederlandi, were placed under civilian administration staffed largely by natives. 161. N. Hitler intended to eventually incorporate many of these areas into the Reich. 163. Germany occupied the Italian Protectorate of Albania and the Italian Governorate of Montenegro in 1943, 164, and installed a puppet government in occupied Serbia in 1940.
Yes, we need a break.